Welcome back to a brand new edition of Views from the Booth. I'm your host, Reed Becker, and joining me today, Ernie Wilson, Jake Cohen, and Jonah Giat. Uh, First, thanks for joining me today.
Pleasure to
Thanks
be
for
here.
having
Thanks
me,
for
Reed.
having us, Reed.
Now, with the playoffs coming up right around the corner, starting with the play-in games really tomorrow, let's start first just previewing. Let's start with just some of the main play-in games for this week. First, Wizards up in Boston at the Celtics. This one, first of all, so winner of this will then play Brooklyn, the 2 seed. Um, so for me, at least, I'm going to go with Washington in this one. I think Boston's kind of a little all over the place. Jaylen Brown's now out for the season. Tatum's kind of the only one that's going to be able to lead them at this point. And at this point, first of all, I think Westbrook's just going to dominate in that game, and I don't think Tatum's going to be enough for the Celtics. It's a Celtics team on top of that has been very inconsistent this year.
No, I'm definitely siding with you. I'm going Washington, no doubt. I mean, Boston's playing, in my opinion, their worst basketball they've played all year at the worst time. And on the other hand, the Wizards are playing their best basketball at the best time right now. I mean, the Wizards have been red hot for about a month and a half now. They're finally coming back into form. And personally, I think they could push one of these top contenders in the East to a few games.
Yeah, I got to agree with both you guys on this one. Celtics are banged up right now. They also haven't been playing at their best. Missing Jaylen Brown, maybe Marcus Smart. I'm not sure on what his deal is. I don't know if I'm a big fan of the rest of that Wizards squad aside from Beal and Westbrook, but I think that they can get it done.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. I'm also going with the Wizards in that game. The loss of Jaylen Brown was just really deflating for Boston, and I think Westbrook's been playing his best ball of the year. So Washington's got to have the momentum there.
Yeah. Jake, I just want to quickly pivot back to Jake. What team do you think is going to be able to have some trouble against this Washington team if they're able to advance?
I think personally, if the Celtics were to win this game, but I don't think that will happen. If Washington was able to play as the 8 seed against Philly, I definitely think the quickness and the toughness of this Wizards team could definitely push a Philadelphia team to 6. I'm not saying they'd beat them, but I think they could definitely push a Philly team to 6. Obviously, I think against Brooklyn, they're completely outmatched. As hard as Westbrook and Beal could try, I don't think there's any match for Harden, Durant, and Irving.
I agree. So the next, which is really now the biggest playing game that's marked on the calendars, Warriors playing at the Lakers. That's going to be on Wednesday, 10 o'clock. So I'll quickly put my 2 cents in this, and then we'll bring into our Lakers quote unquote expert. But first of all, I'll just quickly say that I think it's a 50-50 coin flip on this game. I think that I'll go with the Lakers, although I wouldn't be surprised if the Warriors pulled this off. Although quite honestly, it doesn't really matter because my personal thing is whoever loses this game anyway is probably going to win and get into the playoffs anyway, because whoever loses is not going to lose to a San Antonio or Memphis. It's just, I can't see that happening. But let's now give it to Ernie because he's kind of our Lakers insider, quote, insider. So let's go ahead.
All right, so I believe the Lakers will win this game on Wednesday. First of all, being obviously LeBron James and Anthony Davis just outweigh just Steph Curry on the Warriors. I mean, the Warriors, you do have to respect them. Curry and Draymond have been in big games and have won big games before, but I just think the Lakers, LeBron, AD, and the Lakers defense overall is going to make it tough on Steph. And although I don't think they can totally shut down Steph because of how good he is, I do think that the Lakers are the best team equipped to make it hard on him and make it tough for Golden State to get going. So,
Yeah, like Ernie said, I think you gotta expect Steph to have a big game or at least be. I mean, of course, going all out. Try to carry them to the win. But I think I'm going to have to pick the Lakers as well. I just don't think that they have any way to match up with LeBron or AD. And it's going to put way too much pressure on their weakest positions on the floor.
Yeah,
just
I
think.
go for it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. I just think I'm agreeing with both these boys. Stars shine regardless of how hard you play. I mean, defenses obviously are going to try to lock him up, but at the end of the day, Curry's still going to go get his bag. He's still going to put up 30 regardless of how well they play defensively. But regardless of that, I think most coaches and most teams in a common sense would be willing to give Curry 40, 50 points if he must, if that means that they can guard the rest of the team. Because if he puts up 50, that still means the Warriors have to put up another 60 alone to at least give themselves a chance. I mean, and we all know, I think, how playoff LeBron goes. I mean, he's not going to be too happy being in this play-in tournament to begin with. And
They
I
have to
think
whoever did it has to get fired.
agree. Totally.
Yeah, but so two more things. First of all, I'm also very confident in the Lakers because LeBron in his press conference yesterday did say he's approaching this like a playoff game. So he's not messing around when it comes to this game. He's going to go into it locked in. He's going to approach like a playoff game. And also, I think the Lakers, with Schroeder, Caruso, Caldwell Pope, I think you have three guys that for the entire game you can have on Curry because throughout the season, those guys have all been defending at a high level. So I think the Lakers are going to be throwing fresh bodies at him, and they're going to make it tough on him the whole game.
Totally.
Yeah, I think the Lakers will win this game. I just think that the way they set this up, I think it's kind of both teams will wind up getting in either way because the competition after that's not going to be that strong. But let's now focus solely on the Lakers. I'm just going to give it to Ernie first to give what the ceiling is for the Lakers so far this postseason.
So based on the bracket, if the Lakers were to win this playing game, they're going to play Phoenix in round one. And I don't know about you guys, but I do respect Phoenix. They're having a great year, but I just feel like Devin Booker and Ayton, this is their first postseason. I don't think they're going to have what it takes to take down LeBron and AD, especially based off how the Lakers looked yesterday. LeBron and AD both have looked pretty healthy as of late. So I think that the Lakers would probably win that series against Phoenix. Then you've got the Denver-Utah series. Again, I think that while Denver has been playing well, we saw a couple weeks ago what happened. The Lakers were able to AD was able to counter Jokic, and the Lakers won a few weeks ago. And I do think inserting LeBron into the lineup and in a series against Denver, the Lakers, again, would win. And then the conference finals, obviously, you're going to have – I mean, I hope we get that Clippers-Lakers series this year. And, again, I just think that the Lakers are going to win that series too because, I don't know, the Clippers have just – I mean, they have looked good at points, but at other points they haven't looked good. And I still don't trust Paul George in the big games. He hasn't proved it to us yet. And just this past weekend, you saw what the Clippers did. They tanked these two games. They don't want to see the Lakers, and I think that means something.
Yeah, no, I'm totally agreeing with Aaron. I think ceiling for this Lakers team, I mean, it's definitely a championship ring again. I mean, they're very similar, in my opinion, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just in the sense that they have the same continuity from last year's team. I mean, and the only thing I think stopping the Lakers this year is honestly themselves. If they're all healthy, I mean, what did they change that is different from last year? And I think agreeing with Ernie, the path's really easy. I mean, Phoenix is completely inexperienced. I think regardless of who it is, Denver or Portland, I don't think it'll be a contest. But I do think Utah or LA could definitely push the Lakers to some games. Not sure how it'll play out yet. Got to see how LeBron's status is. Got to see if guys get injured. Obviously, guys have tired. Mitchell's status, Conley's status. But at the end of the day, the ceiling's got to be a championship for the Lakers.
So you just kind of hit it right on the head. So basically, health. That's first of all, I just want to backtrack a little bit. First of all, if you take LeBron's word at face value, first of all, though, he did say he's no longer ever going to be 100% in his career again. But that's kind of I think he's just doing a mind game with the other team.
I can build off on that because in the press conference the other day, he said that multiple times this season, even before the ankle injury, and he said that when he stepped on the floor the first game of his career, he said that he'd never get back to 100% because
Ernie, do you really believe that?
he wasn't referring to that in terms of like this ankle injury. He's never going to get back to like full health. He was referring to the fact that all the mileage he has, he's not going to be where he was physically like his first season.
I don't know. I think it's just a lot of mind games he's playing with a lot of the. I think it's a mixture of both. I think he's aware that he's kind of coming down toward the end of his career, and I think he's also trying to do a Michael Jordan, where he's trying to get into the other team's head, and basically saying, "Oh, you can't." He's basically trying to get the other team's head, and then basically when he does beat them, say, "Oh well, I still beat you with your best." But going back on what Jake said, health is going to be the huge determining factor here for the Lakers, because there's two concerns I have with the Lakers. Obviously, the health with LeBron, who actually for no reason got injured himself again last night and has been dealing with missing the most time of his career really this year from injuries, and then Anthony Davis, who's always fragile. But that's the one concern. But then the other one is their lack of jump shooting. So that, granted, they were able to get past it last year, and they wound up winning the championship because of LeBron and AD. But that's really the two concerns I have, especially if we're going up against the Clippers, who are shooting much better, 41.6 from three as a team and 47 from the corners. So that's really the only concerns I have with the Lakers. But if they are healthy, I do agree that they'll be the favorites to come out again of the West and ultimately the championship. But I do believe that the Clippers are going to be much better this year and push them and I do believe they will get to the Lakers this year.
I don't know, man.
I mean,
Just for another take on the Clippers, like I'm not sure that I know that they've had another year to Kawhi and PG have had another year to play together, feel each other out, but I don't know. I feel like they've been making a lot of they've been having a lot of roster turmoil and turnover with teammates surrounding them. I'm not so sure. Like they've shown that they can be consistent enough to really make a deep playoff run this year. I'm not sure if I buy it yet. But of course, why Paul George? You never know with them.
I'm totally agreeing with Jonah. I mean, Reed, I think me, you, and Ernie were here probably.
I'm not saying they're going to, hold on. I'm not saying they're going to beat them, but I'm saying that I think they will get to the Lakers, to a matchup with the Lakers this year, and probably give them a little more scare than they had last year.
Yeah, I'm sure that would be a great series. I mean, and hopefully we get to witness that.
I don't want to seem too biased here, but I don't believe we're going to see the LA series this year. I'm really in with my Utah Jazz this year, and I personally think that this Conley and Mitchell injuries, I personally believe, is a complete bluff in order for them to load manage and rest those boys for the playoffs. I believe the Nets did a similar thing with James Harden and just continued to hold him out, so he's completely rested. But in my opinion, I think Reed and Ernie, we were here just over a year ago. We talked about last year's playoff preview, and I don't know if you both remember, but my team to come out of the West happened to be the Clippers. So I cannot make that mistake back-to-back years. I mean, they've had their highs. They had about a 9-game win streak, but they've also had their lows. They've had multiple 4 or 5-game losing streaks during this year. So I think the inconsistencies are going to show, especially in times where they need to be as consistent as ever. And I personally think that Utah is going to make it past the Clippers and at least contend with the Lakers for a spot. For a spot in the championship.
I don't know if Utah's getting that far, but
What holds them back, though?
Donovan Mitchell is going to be able to carry a team with Rudy Gobert.
They have a great surrounding cast around them as well, but I don't know how they deal with the Lakers.
He hasn't necessarily carried a team. He's put up only about 26 a game. That's not necessarily carrying a team. The Jazz aren't built on stars. They're built on a team effort of basketball. Something that most teams that end up winning championships actually possess. I mean, we look at the Lakers, obviously last year they did have a LeBron and Anthony Davis, but just because they had those two didn't mean those role players didn't shine out. I mean, you look at a guy like Caruso, we talked about it earlier, Reed, he stepped up huge minutes last year. We throw back to even when the Spurs were winning championships, there was Danny Green who was coming off the bench and playing really well back in the day. We look at Toronto, we had small guys like Fred VanVleet shine. You know what I'm saying? There's role players that actually still shine. And I think the full team effort of Utah is just too much for the Clippers to handle. Even in the season series, the Jazz actually beat the Clippers in the season series, I believe, 2-1.
Right, but regular season and postseason is a completely different animal.
It is, and Paul George is also a completely different animal in the regular season and postseason. He's a completely also just to counter this. I don't want to seem too biased here because I am a Jazz fan, but to counter that regular season and postseason is a complete animal. Utah lost a complete heartbreak last year. Game 7, Mike Conley rims it out to beat Denver, 82-80. You don't think that burns? You do not think that burns? Donovan Mitchell was crying after that. The whole team was crying. They're back. They're better than ever. They made a statement in the regular season by leading the league. I mean, I don't want to sound crazy biased again, but they completely dominated the NBA this year in the regular season. I don't think you guys would disagree that.
Ding, 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 ding. Regular season. The way I see this Jazz team reminds me a lot of the Bucks. I mean, well, first of all, the Bucks we know because they've always choked, but a lot, just not specifically just the Jazz though. A lot of the teams in the East and the Western Conference, especially when you're going up against the Lakers.
I'm not talking about against the Lakers. I said we're gonna make
Cavs with LeBron.
I didn't say we're gonna beat the Lakers. I said we're gonna make it to the Western Conference Final and compete with them. I'm not guaranteeing a shot to beat the Lakers.
Competing.
What?
What's your definition?
Is getting to the Western Conference Finals and pushing, I think, the Lakers to, I think, 6 games. I think 2 games at home is a reasonable thing to say. I think they're going to cruise through the Golden State Warriors, no doubt about it. We're much more guard-heavy than the Warriors. I completely think we're going to beat the Clippers. We're a better defensive team, and we're a better offensive team. But I don't think we're going to beat the Lakers, but I think we're going to push them to 6 or 7. That's what I think is competing.
I think you're getting a little – I think you're asking a little too much with how far you're pushing the Lakers. But
we did see Donovan Mitchell drop some huge games in the playoffs last year, so maybe he can go out and do it again.
And honestly, we're built. The Utah Jazz are built to defend the Clippers. I'm not saying the Lakers again. I'm saying the Clippers, they are easily able to beat. They're just built better than them. They have wings to guard Kawhi and Paul George. I mean, Paul George won't be an issue in the playoffs. We've seen how he performs. But Kawhi Leonard, with Quinn Snyder as one of, in my opinion, the top 5 defensive-minded coaches, he would have a game plan to completely shut down Kawhi. I don't think completely shut down, obviously, star shine in the playoffs, but shut down enough where Kawhi is going to be able to do his thing and still get wins. Lakers, again, I don't think they could beat the Lakers in a full series.
I don't think they're even getting to 6 versus the Lakers. The way LeBron –
You think anyone else would get to 6, though?
Huh?
You think anyone else could get to 6?
In the West? I mean,
in the West.
What I saw in the bubble, I don't think so.
Oh, no, totally. All right. I was just making sure because I think Utah is the only chance that the West has to stop the Lakers, in my personal opinion. I think if it's not Utah that could stop the Lakers, I think there's no one.
Yeah, I mean, the Suns have been just as dominant in the regular season as the Jazz with a little more – I mean, with veteran leadership from CP3, a lot of young talent. I don't think they could beat the Lakers, but I don't think you can write them out either.
The only issue you can write them out is because they happen to are likely to face the Lakers in round 1. If they don't face the Lakers in round 1, then it's going to be Utah, and then I would be writing out Utah myself. It really just depends on how the Lakers decide to play their cards in this playing game, but I do think they're going to try to win and take the 7. I think expert Ernie Wilson would agree.
Yeah, I do. I don't think they're going to try and tank that game or try and fall to the 8 seed.
Yeah, totally. But a team we really haven't talked about, though, that I think has realistically no shot to compete in the West is the Mavericks. I mean, they just got completely folded on,
It's healthy.
What?
Porzingis can't stay healthy. I mean,
he can't stay healthy, and they can't just be good at basketball. I mean, you have an average coach in Rick Carlisle. You have a complete recreational crybaby in Luka Doncic, and then you just have a bunch of average bums in Hardaway, Finney-Smith, Kleber. I mean, just look at Dwight Powell and pick-and-roll defense. It's just honestly
disgraceful.
I was looking at the advanced stats like recently on Basketball Reference, and Dwight Powell's pick-and-roll defense is I believe 394 out of 397 players. And, I mean, he's a guy that you're counting on for big-time minutes in the playoffs. And most teams play a pick-and-roll motion offense. So if he's not able to defend that, I mean, you're going to have a guy like Ivica Zubac is going to ball out. Like, that's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd probably drop 30 on Luka.
Yeah, I mean, the Mavericks are going to need another guy if they want to do anything in the West. They have a long way to go.
Totally.
And meanwhile, Porzingis
counting on Josh Richardson.
Josh Richardson, he can't get it done.
And Porzingis might not even be long-term there because you have the owner kind of calling him out after.
Yeah.
So it's all a mess down there.
Yeah.
So now let's just the switching to the Eastern Conference, the Brooklyn Nets. I'm just going to start with this. I think there's two things. First of all, I think who's coming out of the East, I think it's either going to be Philly or Brooklyn. But the thing that concerns me about Brooklyn is that the big three have not, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's only 8 games in total that they've played together as on the court together because of the injuries and the time
Yeah, eight
because of that. And I know, by the way, because Kyrie decided just to not show up to work because he's Kyrie. But the way this Nets season's kind of been playing out kind of reminds me of how the Clippers played out last year, from the aspect that the Nets, first of all, they had huge expectations, and then they get to the playoffs. Well, first let's backtrack. They have huge expectations. 1, 2, Kawhi decides to sit out a lot of load management, and because of that, and Paul George was hurt. So because of that, they weren't able to build chemistry during the regular season. And then they get to the playoffs and they get bounced before they even get to the conference finals. It feels a little bit coming down that path with the Nets.
Yeah, I mean, no one's going to debate that the talent's there, but I mean, obviously, we don't know what they're fully capable yet because we just haven't seen it enough. But no one's going to deny that their ceiling is a title.
Yeah, no, I'm totally on board. The only thing though that I wanna add to this is, regardless of the Nets' potential, I don't think Philadelphia has what it takes to win. I don't think Milwaukee has what it takes.
Great.
And after those two teams, I mean, we're literally talking about teams I see at the Livingston basketball courts. I mean, I don't want to shout anyone out, but
better recently.
what?
But Miami's been better recently.
Miami has been better, absolutely, but maybe after Miami too, it looks like Jeremy Steinman's playing out there on the basketball court. Personally,
We saw last year the Bucks didn't come to play and the Heat did, so who knows?
yeah, but at the same time, the Bucks did make a great addition in Drew Holiday, and we've seen that he's able to compete. And to help the Bucks' case, they have beat the Nets 2-0 in the season series. However, that wasn't the Nets' big three, so we don't really know what it'll be when we see Kyrie, KD, and Harden. But regardless, I don't think anyone stops that. I mean, that's one of the greatest trios I think I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
I
happy
think
to
I think the
agree.
team that gives them the most trouble is the Bucks personally.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go.
I think the Bucks have a good. I think Miami has a good chance of beating the Bucks again this year after they did a great job of shutting down Giannis last year, and since he can't shoot from outside, I don't think the Bucks really have
The
a
only
chance.
thing to counter with that is that Giannis was a little bit banged up in that series. He did get injured, and I believe it was Game 4. And the
But even
addition, I
before
think, of
that,
Drew
they just
Holiday.
shut him down.
What's up?
But even before that, they just completely shut him down.
They did, but you don't think an addition of an All NBA caliber player in Drew Holiday is gonna ease up that shutting down of Giannis? Because I think I've seen it in the regular season. I don't see why all of a sudden shift in the playoffs, especially when Milwaukee shoots at the second highest efficiency in the NBA. Regardless if they shut down Giannis or not.
The story last year, and I saw the story when they blew the lead against Toronto too. So I mean, it's the same story every year. But
totally, but did they have a Drew Holiday in back-to-back years? I don't believe so, unless I'm having
correct. But that's
early stages of Alzheimer's.
correct. But Drew Holiday's not. I don't consider he's not going to be considered a make or break. I mean, look at the contract they gave.
I think he could be a big make or break guy, especially against in a series with Miami. I think he's an All NBA caliber player. I don't know if you guys agree with me. I think he's capable of winning games. I think he has a very Chris Paul effect on teams. I think he's able to come in and just win games. So I don't think it'll be an easy series, but I do think Milwaukee will get it done in 7.
I mean, Drew Holiday is definitely a great player. Last year, I remember one of the big narratives was that the Bucks needed a facilitator who could sort of fill in for some of Giannis's weaknesses, and they went and got their guy. So I mean, we'll see what they can do with him. I think I'm not sure that the Heat are going to be able to compete the way they did last year.
Mm-hmm.
Just from looking at Jimmy Butler's year, he's been good when he played, but he missed a good part of the year.
Same thing with all those guys, really. I mean, Hero was out for a while. Duncan was out. The only guy who's been consistently healthy was Bam. And the loss of Oladipo hurts. I mean, they gave up stuff for Oladipo, and now he's just completely canned. I mean, you look at key role players. You look at a guy like Kelly Olynyk, who was actually a key role player last year. I mean, he's completely gone.
Yeah, but Tyler Hero's still there.
He is, but he's also been banged. He's been so banged up all the time, and he's actually playing worse than he did last year. And he's completely inefficient from the field. He is putting up more points, but he's only taking an extra like 5-6 shots a game. I mean, I would assume as an NBA player, shooting the ball more will score you more.
I don't see the Bucks until they can actually show something in the playoffs. They're a regular season team to me. They're like the Cincinnati Bengals.
I mean,
I don't even think the Cincinnati Bengals are a regular season team. I just think they're a lottery team personally.
Well, I mean, when they had Marvin Lewis and they went with Andy Dalton.
Oh yeah. Back in the day, yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's the Bucks. So now, I think we'll just quickly wrap up here with last final predictions, finals matchups, and coming out on top. So what I'll do is I'll say the Lakers are coming out of the West, and then I'll say, although I still have some questions with them, I'm going to say the Nets, but I'll still take the Lakers.
My pick, I do think that the Lakers are going to get out of the West, and I also think the Nets are going to get out of the East. But I do think, disagreeing with Jake, that Philly and maybe even Milwaukee could give them trouble because of their interior defense. I think that stopping Giannis and Embiid could be a real problem for them. But I do think their offensive firepower is going to power them past the Sixers and Bucks. But in a final series, I just don't see how, while their offensive firepower is great, the Lakers have probably the best defense in the NBA to counter the Nets offense, and they also don't have any answers for LeBron or AD. So I don't see how Brooklyn's going to be able to stop those two.
I'm going to make a bold pick, make it interesting. I'm going to go with the Suns coming out of the West and the Nets coming out of the East. With, of course, I got to pick my favorite team, the Nets. I think that if it ends up being Lakers versus Suns in the first round, I think the players are aware that they'll be getting counted out. Somebody's going to take an issue with it. They got a lot of great players, guards, forwards, Ayton, and they'll. I think they
Ayton's going to go up against LeBron James and Anthony Davis.
Yeah, Booker and Ayton have never played a playoff minute in their careers.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think that they have got a better chance than most people are realizing. Just with
they have no playoff experience.
Chris Paul has shown what he can do to lead a team.
No. You said DeAndre Ayton.
Devin Booker. I mean, of course, Ayton's like a big question mark. I think most people will agree that he's considerably worse than Booker or CP3, but let's see what he can do.
I'm also gonna go with a bold prediction here. Last year I took the Clippers. They were a heavy favorite, completely let me down. So I'm done taking favorites. We're going bold. I'm going Utah coming out of the West. I'm going Brooklyn coming out of the East. And Brooklyn's good and all, but when you got Joe Ingles, I don't think anyone's stopping you. So I'm gonna go personally with Utah.
Okay. Okay.
If only the Lakers had Ingles.
No, but honestly, I do think Utah will come out of the West. But I do think the Brooklyn Nets will end up winning it all. I just think Kyrie, Katie, and Harden is like the Monstars. I just don't see anyone stopping them. And not even after the season, they still got key guys: Jeff Green, Blake Griffin, Shamet, Jordan. I mean, Mike James has been stepping up big. I just don't think anyone's stopping him.
And Joe Harris.
I didn't even think of him. Yeah.
But yeah, that's all the time we have for today. So that's all we have for today. I'm your host, Reed Becker. For Ernie Wilson, Jake Cohen, and Jonah Giat, I'm Reed Becker. We'll see you again next time on Views from the Booth.